What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. We are back doing another preview video. It is round 2. It is Wales versus Scotland. There is going to be so much to talk about in this game, so I've put the game on for a little bit longer. I am going to play as my created Wales team. It's a little bit lower rated, but we have got so much to talk about. Let's jump into this game. Let's get it kicked off. Alrighty, Gareth Anscombe's going to get us kicked underway because I still haven't changed my kicker in this game. So first of all, guys, I do have a bit of a scratchy throat, so I'm awfully sorry if my voice doesn't sound quite as great, but I definitely want to keep these videos going. I don't want to take a day off because I'm going down with a bit of a cold. So the first week of rugby started off last week, and it gave us such a fantastic week. Most of my predictions were wrong. Every team really turned it up a notch that I didn't think was going to happen. Wales had their sort of lucky break, I guess you could call it, getting a red card against Ireland, which meant that they got to play 14 men for nearly the whole game. Scotland played one of the best games I have seen Scotland played in a long time. I don't even know, a couple of years maybe since I last saw a Scotland performance like that against England. I thought they performed so well, and I think the final scoreboard was a little bit flattering to England, to be honest. I think Scotland could have won by far more. So we've got an awful lot to go through today. There's a whole bunch of talking points, so let's start off talking about the Wales-Ireland because we're playing as them. So Wales-Ireland was a big game. I thought Ireland were going to take that, and you know what? Even after the red card, Ireland performed so well that I still thought they were going to take that. And I've seen a lot of controversial talks going on about that game. A lot of people seem to have looked at the final scoreboard and said, great, Wales got a win, job done. And I guess it is true, a win is a win. But if you're a little bit more sort of rugby critical, you could probably break it down a little bit more. And to me, Wales didn't have the best game they could have done. I feel a lot of people saw the final scoreboard and went, yes, we won, great, it's the best thing ever. But I think there was a lot of issues in that Wales team. Most of all for me was the set play issues. The lineouts were all over the place. Defensively were so much better than we got to see in the Autumn Nations Cup. There were tackles galore. I think Wyn Jones, Tom Francis and Tipperick were all heading towards that 20 marker for tackles. They worked so hard in that defence. And that was mainly because there wasn't a lot of attacking options. Ireland absolutely dominated that game. And I haven't seen a lot of people talking about it. I've even seen articles written and people comment saying that they think this is going to be a Grand Slam year for Wales off of that first win. And I don't think people have really taken into consideration how much damage it does to have a red card on your team. And for Wales to only win, within a scoring try, I don't think it's a great note to start off with Six Nations in. At least it's a positive. It is a win. They are moving forwards. And there were some compliments you have to give Wales. They did play well. They didn't concede points when they could have. But leading up to that final kick from Billy Burns, I was so convinced that they were going to do it. And we won't even go into that Gareth Davis grubber kick at the end. What was going on there? Anyway, I could ramble about this for a long time. But yeah, there were a lot of talking points about Wales. I thought there were some good, there were some bad. But I think this is going to be a real tough game for them to go into. So looking at the team, Wyn Jones, Ken Owens, Tom Francis, we know how well they did. They were some of the standout players for the Wales in that Ireland game, just in terms of tackle and jackal rates that were going on. They were doing so well in that front row. I'm also going to say I love this new graphic. Adding the names at the bottom was really awkward last week, having to turn my head to read them. Adam Beard, I thought, had a great game. I was really impressed by him. Alan Wyn-Jones made my team of the week. A couple of people disagreed in the team of the week thing, but that whole team of the week thing isn't official. It's just who impressed me. It's the best game I've seen Alan Wyn-Jones play in a long time, and people that have followed the channel for a while. No, I am a bit critical of Alan Wyn-Jones, but I think he really stood out in that one. Aaron Wainwright's going to move into that number 6 shirt because, of course, poor Dan Lydiot going out with that injury, running over his own leg. I felt so bad for him. I thought he was having a great game. I thought he was going to have the game of his life against that Ireland team, but he just managed to twist his knee at the end there. So Aaron Wainwright will come in. That's not a bad replacement by any means. Aaron Wainwright is fantastic. I love him at 6 and at 8, so I think he'll work very well together. Of course, Navidi is also out with an injury. The injury list for this Wales team is extremely ridiculous, to be honest now. So we also lost Josh Navidi, went out. Josh McLeod, that came in to replace them, is also injured. So they're running low on flankers at the minute. Justin Tipperick will take that number 7 shirt. Of course he will. Justin Tipperick is amazing. His tackle rate in the Ireland game was so good. He works so hard. They did shut him down really well, actually, to be fair to Ireland. They shut him down from being able to get a lot of the jackals that he's normally so good for. But I'm sure Justin Tipperick will try and step up a little bit in terms of jackal rates against this Scotland team. Faletau will be a bit of a 50-50 one. I think if you're a big Faletau fan, you will have thought he had a great game. I thought he had an average game. There was a couple of of issues I felt in his defensive game anyway. There was a couple of commentary comments as well that really surprised me. There was one where he went in for a tackle against CJ Stander. CJ Stander ran from the backfield and basically just bounced Faletau to the ground. And the commentary team did say, that's why Faletau's amazing, because he stops players, but he to me, he got bounced off. I think it's going to be a personal thing. If you're a big Faletau fan, you think you have a great game. Luckily, though, he is doing okay at that number 8 shirt, so hopefully he will step up against this Scotland team and do some good running work. We didn't get to see an awful lot of Faletau with ball in hand, unfortunately, which is where I think he does so well in that aggressive standard. Gareth Davis coming in, number 9. Thomas Williams also on that injury list. Didn't have the best game, Thomas Williams. I do rate Thomas Williams quite highly. I think I might even rate him higher than Gareth Davis at the minute, but unfortunately, again, not another player that could get going in that Ireland game. Gareth Davis, a good scrum half to have, and he's tried and tested. You know what he can do. If he keeps the box kicks numbers down a little bit, though, again, I think he's very bad at box kicking. He just needs to play the game and give Wales some time on the ball. Dan Biggar at 10. Again, we didn't see a great deal for him last week, so hopefully he'll be able to do a little bit more. Liam Williams coming back in that 11 shirt. His ban is over from headbutting the Cardiff Blues boys in a ruck. Again, another name to add to the list. Hallam Amos, also out with an injury now. The list just keeps going and going. Nick Tompkins is going to move to 12. That's because Johnny Williams is injured. Owen Watkins comes in at 13. That's because George North is injured. To me, I would actually swap these two round here. I think I would have Tompkins at 13. I think he's a much more impressive 13 than 12. I don't think either of Tompkins or Watkins plays 12 perfectly. So to me, I would rather have a much stronger 13 in Tompkins and have Watkins maybe play a crash ball 12 at that point, because you don't have a set 12. Something to point out here is, of course, on the bench, I know we're moving a bit forwards here, but Halaholo has come into the team from the Cardiff Blues, who again is someone I rate very highly. He was going to be in the Autumn Nations Cup. We didn't get to see him because he had an injury before it began, but he is a tried and tested 12. I think he's such a good player. I know he's making his debut, and it's a big game to make your debut against Scotland at home when they're playing at great form, but I have no idea why you would bring a number 12 into a team and then not play him in your starting 15 and instead move a 13 to a 12. It's, of course, a coach's decision. That's why I'm not a coach. I'm just a bloke on YouTube with a microphone. So maybe he's got the correct call. Rhys Zammit at 14. Thought he had a great game. Again, I think he's really, really impressed me in terms of attack and defence. Defensive work for wingers in Wales has been all over the place in recent years. Rhys Zammit's really beginning to steady that ship a little bit. So really happy to see him. And Lee Halfpenny at 15. I think a couple of people will be disappointed not to see Liam Williams in that number 15 shirt and maybe bring in like a Steph Evans onto the left wing. Halfpenny's doing okay at the minute, but I think Liam Williams is probably a little bit better in class of fullback. But then he did have a couple of bad games in the Autumn Nations Cup, so who knows? Who knows? It's up to conjecture. Quickly looking at the replacements. Elliot D, Rodri Jones, Leon Brown is the same people we got to see last week. Didn't make a great impact from the bench, not going to lie. Didn't see particular improvements from coming on the bench, which is what you normally want to see around that 60-minute marker. A bit of reinvigoration into the team. Will Rowlands, James Botham has now come in as well into the team. I assume he will come on maybe for Aaron Wainwright, or maybe he will come on and Wainwright will move to 8 later in the game. Have to see what happens there. Kieran Hardy's going to be coming in at that second string scrum half. Looking forward to seeing him. A very aggressive scrum half, very speedy. Hopefully we'll be able to see a bit of him. Callum Sheedy, to rhyme with speedy as I just said then. A great fly half. Looking forward to seeing him. Again, a very aggressive fly half, bit of a running number 10. Looking forward to seeing a bit more from him. And then, of course, Halaholo will come in. I assume somewhere in that second half, I imagine he would come in for Watkin over Tompkins, and maybe they would move Tompkins to 13. I rate Tompkins slightly higher than Owen Watkin. I'd probably want to keep him on the field. And then Halaholo will probably, when legs are a bit tired, it will make a big impact. But overall, it's a pretty strong Wales team, and they shouldn't be thinking about they're definitely going to win this game, but at the same time, there should be no reason they think they can lose this game. It's a strong Wales team. They have improved in that last game against Ireland. I know it was a 14-man team, but they've definitely improved from the Autumn Nations Cup, so we'll be interested to see how much they can do against this game in Scotland. Speaking of who, let's talk about this Scotland team. So Scotland had the best game I've seen them play in an awfully long time. People I normally criticise a little bit, people like Stuart Hogg that I feel have played below average, had the best game I've seen him play in an awful long time. Hamish Watson played out of his skin. I thought Matt Fagerson had a great game at 8. He secured that 8 shirt now. Finn Russell had a bit of 50-50. He played well in-game when he wasn't yellow carded. Cameron Redpath, I thought, had another good game as well, making his debut, had a good run. Unfortunately, I do believe he's picked up an injury, so he won't be carrying on. Van der Merwe, crash balls. There were so many good Scottish players. They were all doing well, and one thing that I really enjoyed about Scotland was how cohesive the team were. I have been involved in the comments in some of the previous videos. I think people were a little annoyed that I didn't include more Scotland players in my team of the week, and the only reason a lot of these Scotland players weren't included is mainly because in certain positions, other people, to me, just played a bit better in that position. Not saying that the team that they were in played better than Scotland. I think Scotland played very well as an entire team. But as a team of individuals, I think other people played better. But there were certainly some standouts in there. Scotland really, really impressed me. It went completely the opposite to how I thought they were going to go. They really took it on. For anyone that saw my Autumn Nations Cup final video that I did, it's a lot more critically analysing a game of rugby. If that's your sort of thing, you might enjoy those videos. If you don't like game breakdowns and stuff, it might not be for you. But in that game, I did point out that to me, the sort of C-class France team we got to see in that Autumn Nations Cup final played so much like England, and England just don't seem to have a counter for when a team plays like them, and that's exactly what I got to see from that Scotland team, that England game. They played kicking over the top, pinning someone back in their 22, winning in the turnover department, doing a blitz defence, really applying pressure. I think this is a very aggressive Scotland team. Let's check out the team that's coming into this Wales game, and it's very almost unchanged. Rory Sutherland, George Turner, Xander Ferguson, all three fantastic in the last game. Really, really impressed. Scott Cummins, Johnny Gray, great choices. I did wonder if they were going to go for the Gray brothers in the last game. They chose not to. Correct call. Scott Cummings, I actually thought, had a really good game. He probably would have had my Team of the Week number 4 shirt had it not been for Tyg Byrne playing so well for Ireland. Blade Thompson's going to come in at 6. I think there has been another injury. I think it's to Jamie Ritchie's gone now. So Blade Thompson's going to come in at 6. He's not a bad guy to have in. You know, he plays very, very well. Hamish Watson, we're expecting to have a massive game again. Matt Ferguson played out of his skin. So that 1 to 8 is pretty solid. I really think Wales have got a lot to deal with, especially if the fitness can keep up and they play with the intensity they played England against. Ali Price, been a bit of a shaky start. He was probably the weak link out of the team, and that's not saying a lot because the team was such a high standard. He did get a few charge downs. Atoje was really putting a lot of pressure on him, but he managed to recover much better second half than he had in the first half. Finn Russell, hopefully we'll be seeing a bit of better kicking accuracy. We know he can be better than he was, but in terms of playmaking, doing an awful lot. Van der Merwe, the machine of Duhan van der Merwe, played immensely. I wouldn't be surprised if he's going to be the top try scorer for this Scotland team. He is playing out of his skin. James Lang coming in, of course. Redpath out with an injury. Unfortunately, I'd have loved to have seen him carried on, but James Lang's not a bad replacement. Chris Harris, very aggressive, number 13. Maybe not so good on the step, but definitely for a crash ball 13 and trying to pick good lines, he's pretty decent. Darcy Graham taking over. Sean Maitland also out with an injury. Nothing too spectacular about Sean Maitland's game except for the high balls. That guy was everywhere. Every single high ball he was underneath. But Darcy Graham is a speedy replacement, not a bad guy to have on that wing. But Darcy Graham is definitely a speedy wing. He could have a bit of trouble going up against Liam Williams, but I think he should be able to manage fine. And then, of course, Stuart Hogg. If he plays like he did against England, I think he's going to be having a fantastic tournament. Really nice to see Stuart Hogg back in form and playing to the best of his ability. In terms of replacements, David Cherry, Ollie Kebble, WP Nell. So, again, similar replacements. They all came off the bench, didn't let the side down. That's one of the key things. You don't necessarily need to enhance your team when you come off the bench, but you don't want to come on and be the weak link. All three of them came on and played super, super well. Richie Gray did really well. Didn't even see him come on the pitch because he's dyed his hair now. I was waiting for the bleach blonde hair to come on. Didn't even see him. Gary Graham played brilliantly when he came on from the bench. There's so many players here that I'm really looking forward to. Scott Steele, Jaco van der Walt, who I thought might even get a chance to start 10 with Finn Russell not having the best kicking percentage, and we know how good van der Walt can be in terms of kicking. And then, of course, finally Hugh Jones to finish off, who I'm sure will come on in that second half and become a danger man. But overall, this Scotland team is enormous. This, for me, is going to be one of the hardest games to call. In my big prediction video I did before all the teams were announced, I did say that I think Wales were going to win this game. That was before we got to see the performance that Scotland put in. And I think genuinely now, either of these teams should be looking to win this game. It's been such a tough call. I've been asking friends this week, who do they think they were going to win? And it's absolutely split down the middle. Some have said Wales, some have said Scotland. I just think it's going to be whoever turns up on the day. In terms of prediction, what on earth do we think's going to go on here? I'm really interested to know what you guys think. Make sure you drop it down in the comments who you think's going to win this game, because I'm almost at a loss. I'm going to have a stab in the dark, and I've been wrong about other games, as some people love pointing out. Believe me, if I make a prediction and it's not how it turns out in the real world, I have no impact on that. Please, please don't tell me I got it wrong. I know I'm wrong. But my prediction for this game, I'm going to say a Scotland win. And I'm going to say Scotland to win by 5. I think it's going to be very tight. Both teams are going to take that little step up. They've both got positives and negatives to take away from their games. And it's just going to come down to who does what. I think I'm going to have a bit of a tough call judging the Ireland versus France game tomorrow as well. I think teams could go anywhere in this tournament now. Really looking forward to see it. But make sure you drop down in the comments who you think is going to win. Do you think it's going to be Wales? Do you think it's going to be Scotland? Who are you rooting for? Do you think the opposite team who you're rooting for is going to win? Drop it down in the comments. Let me know. I am going to be doing one of these videos for all the games of the Six Nations, so make sure you subscribe to the channel just to keep up to date with all the videos as they're coming out. I hope you've all enjoyed today, guys. I will see you next time, and let's hope for another fantastic game of rugby. See you next time, guys. Bye-bye.